The April 23rd, 2014 meeting of the Ways and Means Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Andrews? Here. Mr. Baroth? Here. Dr. Carbone? Here. Mr. Daniele? Here. Mrs. Draw is excused. Mr. Haney? Here. Ms. Cayley? Here. Dr. Quattro? Here. Mr. Rocco? Here. Mr. Tucciarello? Here. Chairman Yolovich?
Here. Will Legislator Haney please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Are there any speakers signed up for the public forum?
There is. The speakers will have 2 minutes in which to address the committee, and kindly conclude your remarks when the timer sounds and exit through the back of the chambers. Thank you. Our speaker is Thomas Gregory.
I am speaking to item number 4 on the agenda. Relative to the public defender and the conflict defender and the funding that they receive from the Department of Criminal Justice Services. On Monday, I mentioned to the Public Safety Committee, the lead committee, that the competence that you have in both the conflict defender and public defender's office is something this legislative body, in my opinion, and also from my experience, should make a total commitment to. You'll be probably going into executive session on an item on the back page. And I don't think that you would have these problems if you trust in your future with these organizations and make a strong commitment to them rather than considering privatization of any of those functions or outsourcing of legal representation. However, on Monday, the question was raised, and which kind of, the reason I brought this in, this is an appeal. This is what an appeal looks like. And a question was raised on Monday in regards to the public defenders, appeals being some 24 months to 40 months, kind of in delay. And I want you to see, I actually was represented, plus I represented myself before I had that privilege before the 4th Department. And I want to show you in part the amount of paperwork that goes into making an appeal. I can take off this top stuff. These are just notes. They represent about 10%, maybe even less than that, of the preparation that I had to put into an appellate presentation. That is the paperwork that goes into an appeal. It's not something that you do off the cuff of your, just, I think I'll write this. There's a thing called the CPR, which is the Civil Practice Laws and Rules, that tells you how and what position all these papers are going to end up in. But not only that, you don't cite an opinion. There's things called stare decisis. There's current case law. There's things you're constantly researching that you have to be prepared or even adjust the points that you might have initially thought you wanted to bring before the court so you're consistent with the current law. It's not unusual for a case to go from 24 months to 40 months, if that's the case, because you're waiting for a piece of paper that has to be part of your record. And in fact, other than the 30-day limitation, you've got to file your appeal within 30 days or it's not going to happen. Other than that, the courts are kind of really easy on allowances for additional time, but there's a problem. You might ask for a delay, and it might put you in the next court cycle, which means another 3 or 4 months that you're delayed. I think I raise this point for one reason. It's easy to infer, 40 months is justice delayed. But I think when you really look at what's happening in appellate law, different from the criminal side, is that you're making the law that you and I in the future are going to be regulated on. And sometimes taking some time to make an omelet is worth the investment because you end up with a good omelet rather than just uncooked eggs. So anyhow, I just want to advocate on behalf of both the conflict defender as well as the public defender and say that, 40 months isn't that long if in the end result is good law. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this committee? Seeing none, the next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have the minutes from the March 26, 2014 meeting in your folder. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. Next item is new business. Madam Clerk.
Referral 14-0143, acceptance.
Moved by Legislator Rocco, seconded by Legislator Tucciarello. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 14-0144, acceptance.
Moved by Legislator Tucciarello, seconded by Legislator Quattro. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 14-0145, acceptance
Moved by
of
Legislator Quattro, seconded by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 14-0146.
Moved by Legislator Daniele, seconded by Legislator Carbone. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 14-0147.
Moved by Legislator Carbone, seconded by Legislator Rocco. Legislator Haney.
The Chair, what was the engineer's estimate for the job?
Through the chair, the engineer's estimate for the project was a little over $3 million.
When you say the project, does that entail more than this construction contract, or is that the estimate for this construction contract?
Through the chair, the engineer's estimate for construction only was $3 million.
Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 14-0148.
Moved by Legislator Rocco, seconded by Legislator Tucciarello. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 14-0149.
Moved by Legislator Tucciarello, seconded by Legislator Quattro. Is there any discussion? Legislator Baroth.
Through the Chair of the Administration, I've got two questions. One is, with the amount coming from the referral of $52,000 and the 25% match, making that approximately $65,000, does that support the entire full-time position, including benefits and such costs?
Through the chair, I can get back to you with more concrete numbers. I believe there's a county share over and above the grant funding and the 25%.
Thank you. I'd appreciate getting that information. And secondly, and that actually may answer my follow-up question, I noticed in the referral that the funds for this come from or go to two separate fund centers, one for the Project Reunite Families and one for the Emergency Shelter Program. Is there a reason why we're utilizing two different fund share lines for this?
Through the chair, off the top of my head, I'm not aware of why we're using two fund centers, and I can also confirm that for you.
I'd very much appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 14-0150, acceptance of a
Moved
grant.
by Legislator Quattro, seconded by Legislator Daniele. Legislator Haney.
The transmittal says that we're approving a contract for the period of April 1, 2013 to March 31, 2014. That's a period that obviously ended 23 days ago. What is the story here?
Through the chair, we had a few folks in transition parts in employment here in DHS and with the Youth Bureau, and when that renewal came for HUD, it was needed to go before the legislature. It did not happen that way, and once that was found, it went through the proper channels to make sure that it went to this body to be voted on and reallocated.
Through the chair, did Hillside do the necessary work despite not having a contract?
Through the chair, yes, they did.
And through the chair, the purchase of services information form that we received does not, if I read this correctly, it does not indicate great success on the part of the contractor. In the base year of which was 2012, 2013, the target was to be successful with, they were only successful with 41% of the youth. The target was 75%, and they were only successful with 41%. And the so-called primary performance measurement, where the goal was 70% of the youth would be enrolled in school, job training, etc. They only were successful with 60%. Does this give us cause for concern as to whether, well, I guess through the chair, number one, am I reading this data correctly, that they failed to meet targets? And number two, having failed to meet targets, should we be looking for somebody else to do the work?
Through the chair, those are excellent questions. The targets in some cases, as you point out, were not met. This is an extremely difficult population to work with, runaway and homeless youth. So I think even with the best plan and the best intentions, sometimes the outcomes are not what we would hope. HUD did review this program. They came in and did a full program review last fall, I believe, and gave us some recommendations. And this actually is not a grant that the county does procurement for. This is funding through HUD that the Rochester and Monroe County Continuum of Care did the submission for. So certainly the Continuum of Care has looked at the outcomes, and they were considered in this year's submission to HUD.
For the 2013-14 year, the numbers are labeled a projection, and this was probably prepared several months ago, but it just blithely says that the 75% and the 70% targets were met. Since the period is over, were they met?
Through the chair, I can get the final quarter's outcomes.
Yes,
for the legislature?
Through the chair, if by the time of the legislature meeting you could tell us what the actual outcomes were for the year, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Legislator Cayley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the administration. I'm looking at this, I didn't notice it before, but in the 2013-2014 projection, the total number of participants changed from 174, and it went down to 100 for the projection of 2013 and 14, which would definitely raise the percentage of success from 41% to 75, with only an increase of affecting 3 youth versus the number that was previously used for 2012-13. Was that number recommended to the program to downsize, or was that a choice of theirs?
Through the chair, it's my understanding the lower projection for the 13-14 program year was due to a downward trend in youth presenting for those services.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 14-0151,
Moved by
authorized.
Legislator Daniele, seconded by Legislator Carbone. Is there any discussion? Legislator Baroth.
Thank you. Through the chair of the administration, I had a question regarding the size of the local share on this design project. Am I correct to assume that's approximately $8,000?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Thank you. And then on the second page of the referral, it refers to the local funding for the project will ultimately be provided by the Monroe County Airport Authority, which is great. When does that occur?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, generally, when the project is completed.
So in a sense, through the chair, it's a reimbursement for the project to the county, correct?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 14-0152,
Moved by
authorize...
legislator Carbone, seconded by legislator Rocco. Is there any discussion? Legislator Haynes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I understand it, this is a service that we are rendering to the town and village police departments. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that is correct.
And through you, Mr. Chairman, are we reimbursed for this by the town and village police departments?
Through the chairman, no.
Through the chair, do we render this service for the city police department?
Through the chair, no.
Then that leads to the inevitable question of if we render it, if we render it for the town and village departments, why don't we render it for the city department?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we render this service in the capacity of the Monroe County Civil Service Commission, and the City of Rochester is not a serviced agency by the Monroe County Civil Service Commission.
Gotcha.
Any further? Legislator Baroff.
I have a couple questions. The first is I note that the contract period ended in December of 2013. There must be a reason, but I would ask, what is the reason why we're only receiving this now?
The reason for it coming in after the fact is that we enter into a contract in advance each year with Dr. Supnick, and that contract has never previously exceeded $5,000. This is the first time that the contract has ever exceeded that amount, and it didn't exceed it until the end of the year. And so we sought counsel from the law department and purchasing, and they said this was the appropriate venue to bring it for authorization.
Thank you. And through the chair, as a follow-up question, if the contract did not exceed $5,000 until the very end of the year, and we're up to $15,000, what occurred at the very end of the year that required $10,000 or thereabouts of additional fee?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, in 2013, for the first time ever, there was a police academy run solely for local police departments that did not include the RPD or the MCSO, and recruitment for that is done in the fall.
Thank you. And one final question, and I suspect I know the answer now. The fee, in fact, is not a flat fee. It's a per-service fee. Would that be correct through the chair?
Through the chairman, that is correct.
Thank you. And my final question is, how many of the evaluations did the doctor perform in the past year through the chair?
Through the chair, approximately 30.
30. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 14-0153,
Moved by legislator Rocco, seconded by legislator Tucciarello. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
referral 14-0154,
Moved by legislator Tucciarello, seconded by legislator Quattro. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
referral 14-0155,
Moved by legislator Quattro, seconded by legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion? Legislator Baroff.
Thank you. Through the chair of the administration, I have a question about the refund in the town of Penfield for the Beacon Hills Homeowners Association. And my question is, it says that there was a leak in one of the water lines, and the water drained into the storm sewer was not treated, and thus cancellation was required. My question is, what service was not provided that justifies the non-taxation? I'm unclear what the taxation was for in the first place.
Through the chair, it would be for the treatment of the water that went through the sewer system, and seems how it did not go through the sewer system, it went into a retention pond, it was never treated. So that's why the cancellation of the O&M side of the sewer charge.
Thank you. Then through the chair of the administration, just to make sure I'm clear, then I would assume then that as the water left their property, it was somehow metered or measured as it left, and it was only later realized that when the water left the property, it just didn't show up where it was supposed to show up. Would that be correct through the chair?
Through the chair, no. Once they got their water bill, they saw that the water bill was higher than usual, and the water leak was discovered, and based upon an estimate of how much water, had been consumed over the normal, an adjustment was made.
Thank you. Then through the chair of the administration, and this is why I was curious, then is that not in fact, the tax is actually for the water consumed or acquired or leaked or whatever, as opposed to being treated? Is that the case?
Now, through the chair, the way O&M charges are calculated, it's by the consumption of water for a user. So it's a one-to-one relationship.
Okay, and so this reduction through the chair is an estimate of the lost water. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 14-0156, authorize the issuance of refunding bonds.
Moved by legislator Daniele, seconded by legislator Carbone. Is there any discussion? Legislator Haney.
Through the chair, why are we just singling out the bonds issued in connection with Frontier Field for refunding?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not quite sure we are singling out the stadium refunding. Is there other bonds that the legislator is thinking about?
Well, it says that through the chair, it says we're authorizing a refunding of $9 million, the remaining related to public stadium bonds, 1999 issue. I assume that has to do with Frontier Field.
Mr. Chairman, it does have to do with Frontier Field. Mr. Chairman, these bonds are taxable stadium debt. The average coupon rate is roughly 7-point-something%. These bonds are callable August 1st, and we have an opportunity to refund them at a lower rate. I believe the average interest is roughly 3.5%.
Through the chair, so these were taxable bonds that were issued?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
I wasn't aware that any of the Frontier Field bonds were taxable. Why were they taxable as opposed to non-taxable?
Mr. Chairman, these bonds, not only did they partially construct Frontier Field, they also went towards the purchase of the old Silver Stadium. And under IRS regulations, due to the threshold of private activity, they were required to be taxable.
Okay. So it's the fact that these are taxable and are callable this August is what makes them uniquely eligible for refunding at this time.
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
Referral 14-0157,
Moved by legislator Carbone, seconded by legislator Rocco. Is there any discussion? Paul, if you're going to ask a question, we're going into executive.
I don't have a question about the The question that I would like to ask is about the financing. And I would just like to ask that since the last information we have about the, what is it called, the Risk Management Fund is from December of 2012, if before the legislature meeting we could have updated information on the status of the Risk Management Fund.
Mr. Chairman, we will provide unaudited information prior to the vote.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, please.
referral 14-0158,
Moved by legislator Rocco, seconded by legislator Tucciarello. Is there any discussion? Legislator Baroth.
Thank you. Through the chair of the administration, just one quick question. I know that the Department of Transportation did the plan specification and cost estimates for this culvert project. Is that typically one of the things that our Department of Transportation can handle in terms of having the expertise in-house? Because sometimes we do it this way and sometimes we don't.
Through the chair, could you repeat the question, please?
I noticed that in this particular referral, the plan specifications and cost estimates were prepared by our Department of Transportation. And my question was, is this something that our Department of Transportation personnel typically does for referrals regarding culverts? Because upon occasion, this has not been the case, and sometimes it has been the case.
Through the chair, yes. Some estimates are done in-house, and some are done via our consultants. In this case, yes, we did do it in-house based on some previous projects that were recently completed in the last couple of years.
Thank you. And through the Chair of the Administration, I assume that these, the determination to do this in-house or to get consultants is done on a case-by-case basis with a preference towards doing it in-house if at all possible?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Is there any further business to come before this committee? There being no other matters, the April 23rd, 2014 meeting of the Ways and Means Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Ways and Means Committee is scheduled for Wednesday, May 21st, 2014 at 6 p.m. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.